Now, as a gun owner and someone who carries pretty much everywhere I go, I've gotten all sorts of questions from people who know me personally that know I carry, and I guess nowadays also from people who happen to stumble upon my account asking questions about concealed carry, which I don't mind answering at all because some of these are really important questions we have to ask ourselves. One of those questions being about getting involved. And when I say getting involved, I mean making a personal moral decision to intervene in a life-threatening situation that doesn't involve you. Now, this question in itself has a lot of layers and things to consider, so sometimes when I answer people, whether it's friends or people online, they don't like my answer because apparently it doesn't align with what they think I try to portray myself to be here on the internet. So in this video, I'm going to try to break it down from the complications and considerations I think about when asked would I get involved in blank situation. Okay, so let's just first get this out of the way. If there were an immediate threat to my life or the life of my family or friends, there's no hesitation. I'm acting immediately to protect myself and those closest to me. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let me explain what I think about getting involved from a third-party perspective, meaning neither you nor the party you're with is in direct danger, but you feel a moral obligation to intervene and help someone else who may be in imminent danger of bodily harm. Now, it is important to remember that unless you're law enforcement, it is not your job to risk your life to protect anyone you witness in danger, even if you have the ability to. That's why I always ask when answering some of these questions, can I escape? And here's where some people might be turned off by my response, but let me clarify by going over some of the scenarios I get asked about. Scenarios like, say I'm at the mall or a supermarket by myself, and all of a sudden I hear multiple gunshots from a distance from an active shooter. Look, I'm being honest. I'm looking for the closest exit and I'm getting the hell out of there. Which people get upset and say things like, oh, what's the whole point of carrying a gun then if it's not to protect? Look, don't get me wrong. I carry a firearm because I believe in the right to protect myself and others if I have to. But exercising that right also comes with the responsibility and understanding when to use it. Running towards danger in a chaotic situation with little to no information about where the shooter or shooters are located is just plain out stupid and a good way to get yourself killed. And the people who say things like, oh, if I was there, I'll pull out my gun and find the threat, neutralize them, I think are either lying to themselves or are not fully considering the possibilities like there being multiple threats armed. Now, some of you may be familiar with the channel Active Self-Protection. It's a channel that posts real-life self-defense encounters that get caught on camera, where the host John breaks them down and gives advice for us to learn from. Now, a while back, I watched one of his videos that to this day I think about as someone who carries and finds himself in a similar location all the time, because in the video I'm talking about, you have two active shooters entering a supermarket. Once they're inside, one of them starts shooting in the air. This is when your concealed carrier, Joseph Robert Wilcox, draws his weapon and starts looking for the shooter. But one thing he doesn't consider is the possibility of there being multiple shooters. So as he's looking around and chasing after one of the shooters, a second shooter that he fails to identify sees him and kills him right there on the spot. Look, I understand nobody wants to hear stories about the good guy dying. We all want to hear stories of the concealed carrier taking out all the threats and saving the day. But that's just not the reality sometimes. This isn't some John Wick movie where one person can single-handedly take on multiple threats and walk away with just a few cuts on their face. If you truly want to see the reality of what it's like going up against multiple enemies that shoot back in a safe environment, go play paintball or airsoft. You are going to see what it's like to be in a position where you are facing multiple enemies that shoot back while you're trying to locate them without knowing what corners they might be hiding in waiting to ambush you. I remember games back then, you would have those who would talk big, saying things like, oh, I'm going to rush the enemy side and take them all out. But when the game started and shots were being fired rapidly towards our direction, those same people, 9 times out of 10, were the same ones taking cover at spawn. And keep in mind, this is in a safe environment where worst thing happens, you get hit and you're out. In real life, there's the possibility of you losing your life. And you got to ask yourself, can I afford that? If you have kids or a spouse who depend on you, what happens to them? Not everyone's story gets blasted on social media where thousands of people reach out to the family and support them financially. And even if you're not in a situation where people depend on you, think about the people who care about you, your parents, your siblings, your friends. Imagine the damage your death would cause to their lives. These are important questions I think about, and I believe you should as well. Now, I didn't bring up this video to say what he did was wrong because I get it. He tried to do a good thing by protecting others from these shooters, but if you replay the video, you can see he had no idea what he was getting involved in. I'm pretty sure he wasn't planning client to die on the floor of a supermarket that day. But things like this happen when you jump in too quick without assessing the situation and knowing important details like how many threats are there, are they all armed. He just goes straight into the open looking for them. Now, I applaud him for his bravery because I would have never done that. If I was in his shoes and I heard gunshots, I'm either exiting the building if possible and calling for help, or if I can't because it's not safe, I am getting behind the counter with my gun drawn and taking cover, because at least then I have a higher chance of protecting myself and others who may be nearby that can take cover with me as well as we wait for law enforcement to arrive. Now, another thing a lot of people usually don't think about when it comes to getting involved in a third-party situation is the legal side of things. Now, I get it, in the heat of the moment, one may believe that their actions are morally justified, and they very well could be, but if the court system thinks they're not, there are legal consequences, which is crazy to think that we live in a world where it almost seems like they want criminals to be free to do as they please, and if you try to impose them or stop them, you're the bad guy, whose life will be turned into a living hell as you're left fighting in the court system to regain your freedom. And then there's the possibility of you jumping into a third-party altercation and misidentifying who the aggressor is. And best believe, if you use lethal force against the wrong person, you will be tried and held accountable for those actions. And then last, you have things like collateral damage, such as unintentionally harming a bystander. Now, of course, this could also be applied to any self-defense situation where you use your firearm, which is the reason why it's so important to know your capabilities with the tools you carry, because one-on-one altercations, you probably won't be dealing with much distance between you and the threat. But third-party altercations can vary widely. So, say for example, you're carrying a micro-compact pistol and you identify a threat at 30 yards. Are you confident in your training to make accurate shots at that distance while under pressure without causing any collateral damage to bystanders who may be fleeing the scene? These are serious questions to ask yourself, because real life scenarios aren't controlled as they are when we're training. If you miss one or two shots on paper, doesn't really matter because you're training and it's probably somewhere caught in your backstop. But outside of that, those one or two shots not on target can be someone's kid or wife you just hit. So you're not just responsible for hitting your target, but also for every shot that leaves your gun. Now, all this to say, there are specific third-party situations where I could see myself getting involved in. Now, of course, I can only say I would, because at the end of the day, I don't know what would be going through my mind at that exact moment. But I do believe that if I saw someone put in imminent danger of some sort of bodily harm, and there was something I could do to help without endangering myself or those around me, I would. You gotta be on a whole nother level messed up, especially as a man, to see a child or a woman about to be seriously hurt by someone bigger than them and just walk away, or worse, fucking stand around and record. So yes, there are situations where my moral compass will not allow me to walk away. And I just want to make it clear, I don't train to be some hero or vigilante that is looking for criminals. My focus is only on being prepared to protect myself and those around me in situations where I may have to. That's why most of my drills I train for are often based on me doing some ordinary task where I'm going about my day and all of a sudden I'm put in a situation where I need to draw my weapon to defend myself. Yes, there's some drills that, I'll be honest, I mainly do just to get some training in my reloads and transition through multiple targets. But these aren't meant to make myself seem like I can take on multiple threats at once, but rather to help me gain experience and be capable of protecting myself should I ever find myself in a situation like that. So that's all I gotta say. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, if you want to see some of the drills I do to sharpen my skills, make sure to check out my Instagram at ShadowTheWicked. Also, if you want to get in contact with me or ask me any of your questions, that's a great place. But other than that, hope you guys have a good weekend. Stay safe and God bless.